So, in our continuing effort to bring some folks some stories that they may not have heard, we're here with what I'm going to refer to as a team, because they come as a team. Please introduce yourselves.
So my name is Ralph Gilles. I'm head of design for Stellantis, formerly FCA, formerly Chrysler. We've had some names, but I'm in charge of styling and design for the Maserati brand, Jeep, Dodge, Ram, Chrysler, and am I missing anything?
Certain things in South America.
Yeah, and Fiat South America.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess we'd like to start with some of the questions that maybe people don't ask. I mean, I've heard you talk about them before, but I don't recall ever hearing you talk about it on camera before. How did you come into this, like growing up?
Oh, wow. So I grew up in the ugly 70s. So I'm a young kid walking around the 70s looking at cars in my city of Montreal. And every summer, the Formula One circus would come to town, right? So I was into racing because we had a local hero. Gilles Villeneuve was one of the most famous drivers for Ferrari at the time. And every summer, all these cars would come from all over the northeast of America and land in Montreal. And I'm like, whoa, Porsche 930, Countach. I'm looking at all these amazing cars. And then they would go away and we'd be back to ugly cars again. I'm like, well, what? So I noticed at a young age how there was beautiful cars and there was not so beautiful cars. And I started sketching. I was getting all the magazines, and I just got into it, noticing the contrast between something that someone cared about and something that was just made as a commodity. So I wanted to be part of that process.
So, did you play with clay? I mean, did you?
No, I was a kid who built plastic models. Every time I got my allowance together, I would buy a Revell, one of those plastic things, and get the cement and put them together. And then I was kind of in the mechanical piece of it at first, and then I started one day sketching. I was like, ooh, I can draw. I didn't know I could draw. So I used to draw birds and horses and animals, and then started drawing cars. And one of my aunts and uncles said, wow, you really like that, don't you? I'm like, yeah. And they bought me. My mother started bringing me Xerox paper from work. She would steal.
Yeah.
And then I got the materials, and I just started drawing, and I loved it. I was kind of I was always been a lonely kid, just kind of kept to myself, and it was a perfect hobby for someone like myself, just in my room sketching away.
So from the drawing, at some point you got into, and if you tell me we can't mention brands, I'm okay with that. But I know some of the Volkswagen background.
Yes.
So your passion for this in the racing side came from.
Well, here's what happened. So I graduated from work, and I always noticed Volkswagen because at the time they were affordable, fun cars to drive. GTIs. And in Montreal, it was Honda Civics and GTIs. That's what everybody had. So as soon as even though I worked for Chrysler at the time, I bought myself a Corrado and got really into that scene and went into the whole affordable, let's say, fun to drive car world. And that's kind of how I cut my teeth. And then one day I bought a Viper, and it was all over.
But somewhere in this process.
Yep.
You guys met because you also, Doris, have a passion for vehicles. And tell me how you met. Because my understanding is you met at a track. Is that right?
Yeah, the Eagle Talon. No. That's how we met.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So my name is Doris Gilles, and I've been married to Ralph for over 25 years.
Yeah.
So we actually met. We both started at Chrysler at our first job after college, and we met at a benefits orientation meeting. And then a couple weeks later, we were both in Ann Arbor, and he noticed me because I was getting out of my Eagle Talon.
I noticed the car before the girl. But
That
was a hot car at the time.
So we ended up being friends and roommates, and and eventually got married. And I would say I definitely don't have the same kind of history with cars. It's more through him, and it's always been more the social side.
Yeah.
So all the people that we get to see, and then I'll organize dinners or tell our track friends, oh, hey, we're going to be at this racetrack this weekend. You should try to come. So that's kind of how we partner.
But I think the perception across the board, you guys come as a couple. Like you are one. Yeah. You organize everything that happens with Ralph.
So this started a long time ago. So I used to get speeding tickets all the time. So one of the guys I work with says, you should get into racing or get into sanctioned events. So I started doing that. And then I would be gone every weekend. And Doris got fed up with it. She's like, if you're going to go, I'm going to go with you. I'm like, okay. So
well, way back in the beginning, before there were timing apps, etc., I would be at the track with the pad of paper and the stopwatch, writing every lap down.
But you got the other wives into it, so we had it was amazing. All my guy friends would be, and their wives would be timing. It was awesome, and then we'd have picnics, and they brought food, and they civilized the whole thing.
He roped me into organizing a few, and we'd have lunches and drinks, and
she brought it to a whole different level. This is the best track day ever. I'm like, thanks, Doris.
But I think that's what makes it fun. It becomes part of the passion of it. It has to bring in the family, and I think that having your family involved in this. Now, you've got 2 daughters?
Yeah. And then we had kids. That's the thing, right? So we had kids, and then she's like, at the last track day she went to for 15 years, she was pregnant. She was 6 months pregnant, and it was a bad day. It was one of those days where it was sunny, then it was a hailstorm. It was oh my God. She's like, I'm done. So we had kids, blah, blah, blah. We get to the other side of it. The kids are now off to school, and I'm still doing the track thing. And she's like, you're doing the thing again. I'm like, what do you mean? Well, you're gone every weekend. I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to buy you a car. So I bought her a GT, an older 2007 Porsche GT3. A pretty aggressive car to be her first track car. And she learned how to drive stick in it, and then started coming with me. We bought a stacker trailer. This thing escalated very quickly. And took her to VIR, and she was kicking butt. I mean, she's really starting to drive really well, to the point where guys would come to me afterwards and say, nice job in the Porsche. I'm like, no, that was my wife. It was, for me, it was really rewarding, because I would be right seating with her. We had this little headset communicator thing, and I'm helping her, coaching her, and she's so good. Women are the best drivers because they listen. I say hit the apex there, and she would hit it picture perfect.
I've talked to fighter pilots, and women pilots have response times that exceed men. And that's something that guys have told me. There's a Marine pilot right now, and she took a little bit of gaff in social media. But I know a guy that flies with her, and he's like, she's the best damn pilot there. She's a fighter pilot, and she will shoot you down.
I can relate.
So, with the changes at Stellantis, how does this? I know that you were traveling to Italy before with FCA.
Yeah.
Do you travel as well, or do you get to travel with that? I mean, because you've moved up the chain here.
Yeah. So for years and years, 7, 8 years, I was going to Italy once a month.
Okay.
And every 3rd or 4th trip, she would come along, and it'd be fun. We'd add a couple days and turn it into a bit of a weekend. I've been there a long time, so I've got quite a bit of vacation days. But now, because of what happened last year, we're doing a lot more Zoom type Google Hangout stuff, so I don't travel quite as much. But it was neat to integrate Doris into my life. So whether it was a board meeting in London or South America,
and definitely all these Concours car events, I would go with him, and then you make friends with with all the other judges and car collectors and owners, and that's the fun of it.
Yeah, and that's a constant that we found in this lifestyle is the people. Because you think about it, you only drive these cars once in a while, but you look at them a lot, but you hang out with the people you meet through that culture so much of the time. All of our friends are basically through this whole hobby.
So when you go to a concourse, when you're not judging,
I'm always judging.
No. I mean, during the periods when you're not judging.
Yeah.
I'll rephrase that.
The casual, yes.
Yeah. So what tends to catch your eye? Is it design? Is it the racing side? Is it?
I will say this. I notice as a designer, you can tell the battles a car went through to become what it is, right? So every car has a story, right? Every car that has made it to production has some folklore behind it, like the tales of convincing finance or convincing engineering or whatever. And as a designer, you can see the compromises in some designs, where designs were so heavily compromised, it's like, and others that look, oh my God, that must look just like the original sketch. You could tell.
Right.
And when I see a car that has survived the process, let's call it, it stands the test of time. And the McLaren F1 is one of those cars. One of these cars that someone had a vision. I'm going to put the pilot in the middle. I'm going to do this, and work with the proportions, and it looks better probably than the original sketch. And that's the cars that still 20, 30, 40 years later are still tugging at your soul. Countach is one of those cars.
Yeah.
The Porsche 911 Turbo is one of those cars. There's a lot of them out there. And the older, Duesenbergs, these kind of outlandish vehicles that are still compelling today.
Delhay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
where beauty trumped any discussion about
Yes.
how to do it. You know?
Yes. I mean, it's just, you look at some cars and you just go, this is rolling art.
Exactly.
It's just beauty.
Yeah.
You and I looked down when the Alpha Group was here.
Yeah.
This was in 2015, and I interviewed you then.
Yeah.
And I remember you saying, you got to look down the line and look down the haunches of this. You just got to admire this whole thing. I'm like, I love this guy. I'm like, this is the stuff I look at. And like, he's like head of design. Oh my God, he's a car guy. So I get, and that's the first time that I'd met you, and I didn't know you were head of design when we were talking. And
no need to know that.
So the beautiful thing about Ralph, and I just borrowed this chair because our chair didn't make it, and I borrowed this chair from a gentleman over here and ran over to do this interview, so we had a third chair. And I explained to him, I'm interviewing Ralph, head of design. He goes, oh my God, he is such a car guy. Sure, take my chair. You talk to that guy, and you don't know he's that high up in the food chain. And I'm like, I know, but I got to interview now.
That's cool.
So, I mean, that's your reputation. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you, because you are passionate about vehicles.
No, thank you.
So I'm going to do one last question.
Yep.
With everything on display here today, all the new car stuff, seems to be electric.
Yeah.
And there's a big movement towards electric, and there's a lot of debate about when electric moves in and becomes its own, and infrastructure and all this, and I don't want to touch on any of that. What I'd like to know is, let's pretend this is going to happen.
Yeah.
And as it happens, how does that impact design?
Wow, that's a very good question. And we're going, that exact question is what we discuss 24/7 for the last 5 years. And the issue is the passion points, right? So proportions are actually going to be anything we want, because the electric powertrains are so out of the way. They're nice and low, so they don't disrupt design. That's not an issue there. Then it's the oral quality, the sound parts. Every other time you talk to a car guy, they talk about the sound of the engine, the feeling, the guttural thing a car has. How do we bring some of that thing? So we actually we're employing sound designers now. We're talking to agencies that work with the movie industry. How do like Star Wars is probably the genius of that, making the Anakin's thing sound like a fighter and a lion combined. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's things we can do as designers to influence the experience, right? Because you can driving an electric car without any of those things would be antiseptic, and then the whole relationship between you and the car is over with. It's just a device. So how do I make the electric car touch your soul, tickle your heartstrings, make you smile when you drive it, reward you with, okay, I put effort into it, and wow, the car speaks back to me.
Yeah.
I love that. And I love vintage cars, like modern cars. Any car that has that interaction with your soul is going to win. So that's the hot debate internally. I can't reveal all of our secrets, but let us convince you, hopefully, that that's what we care about. We don't want the car just to be a device.
So one of the and this is just me personally. One of the trends that I saw is you guys just rolled out the new Jeep and the interior design on that. Yeah. And it's got this I think of a Bizzarini diamond pleated, and I look at that design and I'm like, in a Jeep, this is badass. Yeah. Like, it's cool as hell. Is that is that something? I love that. I'm just saying.
So here's the thing with that. Like, so the auto industry tends to benchmark itself.
Yes.
I'm going to do one of these. I'll look at our lateral competitors. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Let's look at cars 3-4 times our cost point. Let's look at the best vintage cars that tug at our souls. That's what we did. So the quilted leather, these knurling things you would see in a Rolls Royce or a Bentley, we're bringing to the common man.
Yeah,
that's the cool
part. It's incredible.
Yeah.
I've had so many people compliment the designs that are coming out of your company.
Oh, thank you.
Just because it's innovative, it's throwback stuff. There's hints. You can look at the cars that you guys are doing today and see hints of stuff from elsewhere.
Yeah, and more to come. I'm so excited.
And I think that's because of you. I mean,
no.
I think it's because of the team you have. Or at least
I just clear the brush for them,
And that's good.
That's what I do. So.
Guys,
and I'm backed by her. She keeps me sane. So thanks.
Thank you guys so much for coming here and doing this and spending some time with us and letting us really capture this piece of the story.
You got it. Take care.
So, be safe.
To all the enthusiasts out there.